and see that we are all living in autocracies now. And our rights are just being erased day by day by day. So David McBride's case really is a case that impacts all of us. You know, he didn't betray Australia at all. He stood up for every single one of us.
We have a fantastic guest lined up here today, and this is a little bit of me being selfish because my friend David McBride is an Australian whistleblower who was an Australian Defence Force lawyer. He was convicted in May of 2024 on 3 counts relating to his having exposed war crimes being committed by the Australian Defence Force in Afghanistan. He exposed that, leaked that information to the ABC, which is Australian media, after becoming increasingly concerned over things that he had seen throughout his time in the military, behind the scenes, and both in his deployments as well. He was concerned that the war was dictated by politics rather than the best interest of Australians and Australian soldiers, which all wars are. So David attempted to raise the issue internally and only took matters to the press when that effort was unsuccessful. And this case really further exposes the West in general, the attack on truth, free speech, and whistleblowers. We've seen that with Chelsea, and we've seen that with Julian, and we've seen that with John Kiriakou and others. So this is just another one of those cases. So joining us now, we have one of David's attorneys, Eddie Llloyd, and she is joining us very early in the morning there, so I appreciate that, ma'am. And she is an Australian specialist criminal attorney who has advocated for drug law reform, emphasizing treatment and rehabilitation over criminalization. She also serves as a Lismore City Councillor and chair of the Social Justice and Crime Prevention Committee, and she is the New South Wales Greens candidate for Senate in the 2025 election. And of course, as I mentioned, she is currently representing David McBride throughout his case. So Eddie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Misty. Just to correct, I'm no longer a councillor.
Oh.
But yeah, I am still.
Served your term, huh?
Yeah, I did. And it was like a prison term. Yep, never want to do that again.
I don't blame you. I could never. So, okay, I briefly mentioned there who David is, what he did, but maybe you could give us just a little bit of detail, a little concise explainer on who David is and why he finds himself in the position he's in now.
Yeah, thanks, Misty. And David said hi. I spoke to him yesterday. Look, it's really great to have this opportunity to speak on here because the big problem has been, of course, the fourth estate in deciding, you know, what truth is and how to report the David McBride case and missing a lot of detail. Yes, David McBride was a military lawyer. He saw the rules of engagement over in Afghanistan suddenly being changed in about 2013, and he was an expert in the rules of engagement. And he said, hey, hang on a second, these rules are actually so complex now that soldiers are going to have to really hesitate and consider all these different steps before they shoot a Taliban. And this is going to place, you know, our soldiers at risk in Australia. So he said that was a big issue. The second thing that happened was all of a sudden innocent soldiers were being prosecuted. So it's this combination of things that were happening that, as in Jimmy's words before, smelt like there was some dark fuckery going on. And so he blew the whistle. He made an internal complaint. He went to the AFP. He went to the Minister for Defence. He went to the Attorney General. He went everywhere. There was nowhere left for him to go except the media. So much the importance for David to let the public know what was actually going on in Afghanistan, not just with the change in rules and the danger to soldiers and that people were getting innocently prosecuted, but also the whole war as being a sham and the trillions of dollars, you know, of waste there and the lives of American, Australian, and many soldiers and innocent civilians as a result of that war that was built on a lie. And it was only really later that the full truth has started to emerge about why the rules of engagement were being changed and why innocent soldiers were then being suddenly prosecuted. Really what we believe, it was a covert kind of warning to those elite soldiers like Ben Roberts-Smith here in Australia who were committing war crimes the year before. It was a tightening of the rules and showing that they investigated to counteract rumours that were being, you know, spread around in the media in Australia, particularly about Ben Roberts-Smith. But it's David McBride. That's the one that's sitting in a little concrete prison cell today, and not one other person who is suspected, not one of the 19 people that are suspected of committing war crimes out of the Afghanistan inquiry that we had in Australia, but are in jail, not one of them. So right now we've exhausted all our avenues. We've been to the Supreme Court. We tried to run a trial. Evidence was taken by the government, so he couldn't provide himself with a defence. He was forced to plead guilty. We appealed that conviction and the severity of sentence, and just a few weeks ago, we got the result from that unfavourable to David McBride. So now we are off to the High Court because we need to challenge this idea that soldiers should just be blindly obeying orders. Now, if that's the law, then see you later, Nuremberg. We've just got to wipe that from our conscience, because right now, as you've both pointed out this morning, the truth is under attack all around the world, in Gaza, in Iran, in the US. We see truth tellers being silenced and locked away. We saw Mahmoud Khalil, the Palestinian American, finally being released after being taken by ICE agents, really for just exercising his right to speak about political issues. And the judge, I think, ruled that was a violation of free speech. And that's how dangerous it is, the truth. That's how dangerous the truth is. The powerful are deciding what the truth is, and the media are just going along with it. And I think too many of us are standing by, and I think that's a real issue here, is the bystander issue. Too many people in the world are just standing by because it's not convenient to not say anything, to not defend others when they see wrongdoing. And I'm grateful for shows like the Jimmy Dore show, independent media that is actually rising, because people are losing faith in the mainstream media. And it's shows like yours that I hope will start waking people up out of their sleep and see that we are all living in autocracies now. And our rights are just being erased day by day by day. So David McBride's case really is a case that impacts all of us. He didn't betray Australia at all. He stood up for every single one of us. And, now we have to stand up for him. So we need to just get the message out. His case, we could all be David McBride. We could all be Mahmoud Khalil any day now. That's the way the world is going.
Yeah. So can I just jump in a sec? So
of course.
Could you just make it clear exactly what that he's being charged with exactly?
Sure. So, Jimmy, he's been charged with leaking so-called classified information to the Australian media.
Yeah.
So the ABC here in Australia used some of the classified material that he gave them to do a bit of a story about the low-hanging fruit in the army. McBride has always been concerned with the leadership. It was where he was getting these orders that he deemed was unlawful, where he smelt that dark fuckery going on. Right. That's what he's been after. So it's been kind of 12 years now, his kind of pilgrimage for justice, his pilgrimage for truth here.
Okay.
And so, he's always been after the leadership, because they were making these decisions to change the rules, to prosecute innocent soldiers, and he was just upholding the rule of law as a lawyer and a soldier, saying, hey, we can't have this unequal kind of justice on people. You can't under prosecute or over prosecute. Both things are just as important as each other. That's what the rule of law is about, equal justice.
And so just like they did to Daniel Ellsberg in the United States, and when he exposed the lie of the Vietnam War, they tried to prosecute him under the same idea that he was leaking classified. Same thing they did to Chelsea Manning, the same thing they did to Julian Assange. It's the exact same thing. So it's not the people who are committing the crimes that are in trouble. It's the people who are letting you know that someone is committing a crime. And like I say, the Western world are just adult children of alcoholics, that the people who are committing crimes don't get in trouble. It's the people who tell you about the people committing crimes.
And it's a particular truth, though, Jimmy, because there are some people that, some Australian government officials that think, oh, Julian Assange did something good here with that truth, but that particular truth, that we didn't like that. It's like this selection of truth that we see the media and government officials like a playground, deciding what they like and what they don't like, what is convenient and what is inconvenient. And what David McBride had to say and the links to the leadership and the government that he was exposing was just too much. And they just threw everything at. Like, we've had millions of dollars thrown at his prosecution, public Australian money being spent to prosecute, persecute and jail David McBride. But you know what? We've got truth on our side, and we've got people who are willing to stand up and continue to stand by David McBride and get the truth out there, because everything's at stake. I mean, I don't even want to say our democracy is at stake, because I think our democracy's gone, quite frankly, a long time ago. So.
Yes. What is the general sentiment in Australia over this case?
Well, it's been spun out of control by the media, so people don't know what to believe anymore, because they're just getting these bite-sized kind of because so much classified information was removed by the government. We saw a real breakdown of our separation of powers, where we saw the Attorney General, the highest legal officer in Australia, come into the special remit of the court and remove evidence. So there's been little bits of evidence that has been disseminated in the media, and so a lot of journalists are just filling in the gaps with their own agenda, with whatever they want to fill it in. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about David McBride, but there's a lot of support for him. There continues to be a lot of support. He gets, what keeps him alive really are the letters he gets in jail and the postcards he gets in jail, just to, help him keep the stamina up for the fight that he is having, because he's got to know that we're all on his side. We really are standing with David McBride as he goes through this. He doesn't have to be a lonely warrior for truth. I think there's many of us now that want to stand up for the truth.
And if I may, just really quickly, this is my friend David McBride, by the way, and his little pup Jake. Full disclosure, he is somebody that I've interviewed numerous times over the course of many years. I do consider him a friend. But the type of person that he is, I really can't impress upon people. He's the kind of person who, for example, anytime I would interview him about his case, David, what's going on with you? What's happening with you? How can we help you? Within maybe 4 or 5 minutes, David would change the topic of conversation and ask me, how is Julian doing? What can we do for Julian? How can we address what's happening to Julian? How can we help? So he's just that kind of a person. He's very selfless. He was on the ground for Assange for years. I mean, you can see him here with the Assange family. There's Stella, there's Gabriel, John Shipton. He has been on the ground for the Assange case for many, many years, and was a very strong and powerful voice on the ground for that. So, and this is a picture. David wrote a book. It's called The Nature of Honor. Eddie, you can find that pretty much anywhere that there's books, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can Google it. You can Google Dave McBride. He's got a website. There's a lot of information up there. So, yeah. So if you want to learn more about who David is, he is just a really amazing human being. He is very selfless, very honorable. He genuinely wanted to do the right thing. And in my opinion, and I think most of Jimmy's viewers would agree, he did. And I think that maybe you could talk briefly about this, Eddie. The argument was his allegiance to the crown, or was his allegiance to the Australian people? And that's really what the discrepancy was, where David felt like he was serving the Australian people, and the court didn't agree. We think the court has just got that so wrong, Misty. I mean, come on. We're in 2025 here. A soldier's duty is not to serve the king. And that's kind of ultimately what the court decided. David argued that he took an oath to serve Australia and Australia's national interests, and it was in the public interest that he was acting to get this information out through the media to let Australians know what was going on in Afghanistan. He also had a higher duty as a lawyer, as a model litigant, as a government lawyer, as a military lawyer, to make sure that, his main role as a lawyer, the paramount duty is to the court, to the administration of justice. Justice must be seen to be done. He has to uphold the rule of law, that is equal justice for all. And that is exactly what he complained about, that there was not an equal justice being applied to all. But more importantly, to everyone out there, and this is relevant, his case is just relevant to everybody, because what we're arguing in the High Court is that there must be some circumstances where a soldier can, and indeed for us, must disobey orders, even if they're authorised pursuant to military law. Now, look over at, the Gaza Strip, what's happening over there, and all these IDF soldiers, they're being ordered to do certain things, aren't they? And what are we seeing? We are seeing children starving. We are seeing bodies mutilated, amputated. We're seeing hospitals bombed. I mean, it's going to be a dreadful day for those soldiers to try and argue that Nuremberg doesn't exist. So this is happening all over the world now, in Iran. I mean, we're just seeing it everywhere, where we're all just pretending that Nuremberg never happened. And we can't be, no one is going to be able to say that they're willfully blind about what happened there. And so that's what our case is about. Come on, Australian High Court, stand with us here. Do not endorse Nuremberg. He does not have to obey orders when they would make him cover up crimes and not speak out about unlawful activity that he observes by the leadership and the government of Australia.
Well, in fact, I know in the United States, I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but a soldier in the United States has the Constitution. He swears an oath to the Constitution, not to the president, and it's your duty to disobey an unconstitutional order. And
that was our case. That's exactly our case. But no, the court didn't agree with that, and nor did the Court of Appeal. So that's why we're in the last, we turned to the High Court to administer justice finally. We've got 7 justices that sit at the High Court. We hope we get a good hearing. It's a huge battle just to get in the front door. We've got to make a special leave application just to get in the front door. Then we can put our bigger arguments before the court and hopefully get some justice, not just for David McBride, but for all of us. We can't have this decision stand where a soldier just has to obey orders. Like it just ignores Nuremberg completely. And, I know that might be convenient for many people around the world, the IDF in particular in the Gaza Strip, but it's not humane. And yeah, that's what David McBride's case is really all about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have coming up, you said you're going to, this was from yesterday, I believe, 5 days until we file McBride's special leave application, which is looking fantastic. Thanks to the eminent Stephen Odgers, SC. And can you chip in? This is the chuffed.org fundraiser. If anybody has a few dollars they would like to throw, Eddie and the other attorneys have been working essentially pro bono. As I'm sure most people can imagine, it is incredibly expensive to fight a government. So this is something that they could certainly use financial help with. Also, I think really just, and I'm sure Eddie, you would agree with this, just getting the word out. I know that in Australia, you've had trouble getting mainstream press to cover it at all. Obviously, it's not being talked about in the United States because it's not, he's not American, and we have a lot of American exceptionalism here. But I think Americans, especially those people who supported Julian Assange and who supported Chelsea Manning and other whistleblowers here, would definitely get on board with supporting David. And I think that global support is really what's called for here, because this really is, as we mentioned, this is a global issue. This is a global attack on truth, a global attack on free speech and on press freedom, and on, if exposing crimes becomes criminal, we're in a really bad spot. So
and if we win this case, I think it's the highest court in Australia deciding that, we can show that to the rest of the world. We can show that, in contrast to what's going on, that, well, who are you going to answer to, IDF, when, you're going to try and say that you were just given orders, to kill babies, to starve people, to not let food in, or whatever it might be. So this case might have some global power behind it that might kind of shine a light and expose clearly to people that this is happening everywhere else as well. And Australia has decided no more, that we uphold the rule of law in this country, and that a soldier's duty is not to blindly obey orders.
Well, we have a big viewership of the Jimmy Dore Show in Australia. In fact, it's always in the top 5 viewerships on our videos. So hopefully this will help.
That's why I brought it. I was really hoping we could get some eyeballs on this. Selfishly, since David is my friend, that was my goal here. I will admit that. But yes, this is, in my opinion, we need to stand for truth speakers wherever they stand, wherever they are in the world. I don't care. The truth is the truth, no matter who speaks it or where they speak it from. So I'm also...
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Say, what I think gets missed in the news a lot with Dave McBride as well is that he was a veteran. Like he served in Afghanistan on the front lines. He's gone into custody. He's in jail now, experiencing PTSD from the moral injury and from what he saw over in Afghanistan. He was ripped away from his assistance dog, Jakey. He's had no support there at night. He sleeps with like pillows next to him, kind of like a weighted blanket, just as though Jakey is still there. Let's not forget, this man is a veteran that served Australia, and he's lost so much. He lost his marriage over this case. He's lost his money. He's lost his freedom now. He's lost being able to be with his daughters. His youngest daughter is going through year 12 now. He can't be with her to support her. We've just got to think of the human side of thing for David McBride, that's sitting now in winter in a cold concrete jungle in Canberra somewhere for speaking the truth. And like I said, And I can't say enough. If people aren't waking up now, that could be you tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And if people also want to, and I know, Eddie, you've spoken about this many times before, David could really use a morale boost. And so if you want to send a letter or a postcard, I've been sending postcards. I got some really amazing beach postcards and things like that. Hopefully that he can also hang in his cell to,
with toothpaste. Yeah, sticks it up with toothpaste.
Yeah. Yes. But I mean, I think, especially in his situation, just feeling like you haven't been forgotten about, that people are in fact fighting for you, just that kind of morale boost. This is the address that you can write to him that you see on your screen now. So I'll leave that up for a couple minutes while we close out. So if you want to write it down, I try to send a postcard, every couple weeks. We're not sure if he's getting all of his mail. We know he's getting some. We never know if he's getting all, but
yeah, he's getting yours. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. And I'm glad, and please tell him, I love him and I'm thinking of him always. And we're still fighting the fight, and, not to give up hope, because I think that we are going to get him out. I think that eventually, obviously he was sentenced to 5 years, 8 months. The parole, I think, is 2 years, 3 months?
Well, whether he gets parole or not is another politically interfered kind of situation. It's up to the Attorney General, the same Attorney General's department that refused to stop prosecuting him, that refused to agree that he was acting in the public interest, that were responsible for removing all of the evidence out of his trial. Yes, the same Attorney General is the one that's going to decide whether or not he actually gets parole. So there's a real risk that he might stay in jail for 6 years. He's 61 now. That's a long time for someone that age. It's a long time. Yeah.
And he shouldn't have spent a single minute there. So, Eddie, is there anything else that we forgot, that we haven't mentioned? Is there any other way people can help other than buying the book or donating to the fundraiser campaign?
Yeah, all those things are wonderful. He loves the postcards, colourful postcards from all around the world. He loves that people are still thinking of him. It really, really does get him through the day. So, yeah, sending him postcards is wonderful. And if you've got, just forego that second coffee or that second beer, chuck some few bucks into the fundraiser, help us pay our eminent senior counsel, Stephen Odgers, so that we can put this case before the High Court.
And even if you can't donate, sharing is caring. The more eyes that get on it, the better, the more that people who can contribute will be able to. So, Eddie, thank you so much. I know it's very early there. I appreciate you waking up to join us to talk about David's case. And please, again, give him my love the next time you speak with him.
I will, and anytime. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Toronto again, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Rutherford, New Jersey, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.